Hi everyone, how are you doing? Good morning, happy Monday. So the question is that I received from this beautiful person, how does one find oneself? And I asked her if it's okay for me to make a live, and she was excited about it. So, how does one find oneself? It is such a deep, deep question because it's like stepping into uncovering the truth of all truths, right? Because when we find ourselves, we find everything. And so it's very simple. It's very simple. And yet it's not easy. And the reason it's not easy is because our minds, our logic, are so in control. We have to have a very linear way of looking at things. It's all like in step form, right? And the question how means that the mind is confused and doesn't know what to do because this information isn't here, available here, but it's available here, right? It's more available in, I know they all say the heart energy and we all stare at our heart and wait for it to open, but it really is in this heart department, in this heart chakra. It's actually, to be quite honest, it's everywhere in the body that knows the answer to that. Once we are not fully invested in what our thoughts are telling us. However, I'm still going to share the how, because the logical mind needs to know, and my mind is very much like that too, or it was. It subsided a lot more. But I needed the how of everything. I doubted everything. I doubted my intuition. I doubted myself. So the cool part about this is that due to this question showed up. And I had been wondering, I'm like, I know there are more books inside of me to write, but nothing's showing up. So I was cool with it. And I was, just channeling to myself and writing things and, talking back and forth to maybe my higher self, the divine and me and all that. And then yesterday when this question popped up, I found myself, I couldn't stop typing and writing. And I'm on like chapter 5 now, reaching the end of chapter 5 and what I think is going to be a book. But it's like the journey of the awakening, the journey of finding oneself and all this. And I noticed there are so many different paths one can choose to take. And so much of what I'm sharing in that book, how to, like the detail, like the book is the journey, but if you want to master the skills on how to get there and start with the shadow work, I highly recommend getting my book, Discover the Gifts of Your Disempowered Self. You'll find it all over Amazon, anywhere in the world. So that was just channeled through me. It's got like details of the details and the hows of everything and what to do and tools and techniques. It's just wonderful. So go get that book. Today, I will be sharing with you the how. The first step to getting and finding who you are is coming to terms with who you are. Yeah, as everything upside down. But it's coming to terms with who you are. And what do I mean by that? When we come to terms with who we are not excluding our shame, our judgment, the I don't matter, the I'm not worthy, the I'm unlovable, the I'm angry, the I'm hateful, the I'm jealous. We are not excluding those parts of us. Now it's very clear. I was so ashamed. I didn't even know how ashamed I was of the shadow aspect of me or the darker version of me, right? And we all have those darker versions in us. We want to be compassionate and kind and loving and generous and seen by others and heard by others and loved by others. And we want to put a persona of only the light that we are. And whenever an aspect of us shows up that we deem wrong, or society had deemed wrong, or our parents deemed wrong, or whatever, whoever deemed wrong, whatever, when any version of that of us internally shows up, we squish it, we deny it, we get afraid of looking at it, we think we're ugly inside, we think there's something wrong with us. We're supposed to be good people, we're supposed to be kind, we're supposed to be loving, we're supposed to be compassionate. This is the identity I have dressed myself up in, right? I have to be smiley to everyone, I have to be good to everybody, I have to like forget about me in the process and make sure everybody's fine, everybody's happy, right? I will say yes to outings I really don't want to go to, in hopes that it cancels, then I feel more free that I didn't cancel it, so that people don't, like, I don't get judged, or I don't get excluded later on, or if I cancel all the time, then people simply won't invite me, I'll be lonely and alone. There's a whole bunch of different ways we refuse to acknowledge the versions of us that exist in us also, because it's deemed wrong, it's shameful. So I was really, really, really ashamed. So ashamed that I was unaware of how ashamed I was of the aspects of me that held anger, the parts of me that were jealous, the parts of me that were frustrated, the parts of me that were not optimistic, were pessimistic, the parts of me that was a victim of life, the parts of me that were sad, were depressed, were fear-based. All these versions of me existed, except that I refused to see them. Now, how do I get to find myself? How it worked for me after I like banged my head against all walls and tried all techniques, everything known to humanity, everything that was out there in the universe, right? After trying it all, the one thing that brought back my confidence, that brought back my compassion towards at least me, that actually made me be more compassionate than I ever thought I was possible. I thought I lived under that title for myself, but I didn't know how compassionate I truly was until I discovered who I truly am and was okay with the versions of me that I deemed ugly. See, the thing is, I lived most of my life terrified that if someone got really, really, really close to me, they would see this ugly version of me. They would see my truth, the ugly truth of who I really am, right? Because the truth is, I didn't even want to see that side of me. I hated that side of me, right? I didn't know that that side of me was only looking to be loved by me or accepted. Like there was nothing wrong with it, that every human being on the planet has those things inside of them. Everyone, so many people are functioning under, I don't matter, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve love, I'm, there's something wrong with me, I am wrong, I'm not safe here, I'm not safe with anybody. Like we all function with those beliefs, except we don't want to see them. We don't want to acknowledge them. And in not acknowledging them, we feel empty and hollow inside because we are in constant denial and hate of who we are. So as I always say, everything on the planet here, what we logically know, the opposite seems to be true. Crazy as it seems, the opposite is true. So a lot of people just tell you, forget what your mind is saying. Go insane. If you go insane, you're not listening to what your thoughts are telling you, which are basically the program that is stored inside and the echo of the repetitive thing that keeps coming, right? My repetitive thing is, you don't matter, you don't matter, you don't matter, right? So when I finally found myself, it was a journey, and please don't rush to the end. I'm still in the journey, and this journey will last till the day I die, right? But it just gets easier and simpler and kind of more fun and less suffering as I sat with the angry version of me and said, I have anger. And I realized that the reason I'm so angry is because when I would please people so much and completely deny me out of tremendous fear of being rejected, being abandoned, being left behind, being insignificant, not mattering. When I discovered that all this pent-up anger, I had so much anger inside because I never received from people what I wanted to receive from them for sacrificing myself for them, for sacrificing my own joy to make them happy, or to jump through hoops for others, or to be of service to the world, or whatever it was I was like invested in. Because the people-pleasing syndrome, the codependency is, I'm missing something. So I'm going to do so much for somebody, give up on me, so that they can give me in return appreciation, a smile, a thank you, something to make me feel worthy, in a sense. So I also sat with the unworthy me, right? I sat with the angry me. And I found that the angry me was all about, I don't matter, I don't matter, I don't matter, the rage inside. And I let that rage rip. I sat and I said, I have anger, and a version of me is super angry. And I'm going to acknowledge that I'm allowed to be angry. And so I gave myself permission to be angry. And I was angry. And I saw that ugly version of me, that angry version of me that would only come out in spurts because I would pent up my anger and the feelings of disrespect from anyone I was interacting with. Like they would say something and I'd still smile and, I don't want to rock the boat, and I'd still make things okay because I just couldn't do confrontation and I couldn't have people angry because I would freeze. It's the trauma in the body. But then there would be anger inside. And I would say, okay, and I'd pass it. I'm positive. I'm optimistic. It's okay. I'm a happy person. But then I would erupt in rage and anger. It would just go, bah, 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 and I would say everything I've pent up and felt about this person. And of course, later I would feel so guilty. And I would shame and blame myself and wouldn't know what is going on. Until I discovered that I have the right to feel anger. There's nothing wrong with me feeling angry. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that what this person said this time has made me feel this way. I started to be more in touch with who I am. And the only way to be in touch with who you are is to actually befriend your shadow. Is to actually get to know all the versions of you that you despise so much. Because it's a part of you. It doesn't mean it's the leader. It just means it's a part of you that makes you feel hollow inside. So the first step that worked for me was to actually write out so clearly the ugly version of me I hate and write it to myself. You know how hard that was? You know how hard it was to admit to me as I was writing. You know how hard it was to even write it? I was crying. Because it was the ugly me that I was looking at. The me that I felt people would never love. That I felt that whenever it showed up, people ran away and I was abandoned and left alone, right? I was looked at disgustingly. I was, ew, you're right? I was despicable. And to write it out, I was scared that what would happen if I acknowledge those things in me and write them out in a list. What if I become them? This was the biggest terror. What if I'm like, okay, fine, I'm an angry person now. I have anger inside of me and I start to go around the world and I'm just spewing anger, right? What if I acknowledge that there are jealousy bubbles inside of me? And I couldn't even write that one because what I hated the most in others is their jealousy. I did everything not to get anyone jealous of me. Everything in my power. It was the one thing I hated, to only discover that I had it inside, right? With my ex-partners, boyfriends, husbands, whatever. I can't believe I say husbands with an S. But anyway, I would feel jealousy that they would be speaking to other women or, complimenting other people or saying these loving things to other people. And the jealousy would rise up and I would hate myself for it. I'm like, I'm not a jealous person. I cannot be that person. I hate those people and I'm feeling it now. Oppress, oppress, oppress. But as I wrote it out, And I let it show, and I said, jealous me, just what is up, talk. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I let the jealous me, and I just saw it, and I'm like, fine, jealousy lives inside of me too, right? And I acknowledged and I wrote. I discovered unbelievable beliefs and stuff inside. I discovered that because I desired that attention from those people specifically, that I would feel resentment inside, that I wasn't getting it. Like they could offer it so easily to everyone else, but no matter what I did, I would not get it. So I was not good enough. I was not good enough, right? So jealousy became, which in my book, Discover the Gifts of Your Disempowered Self, anger, jealousy, sadness, all these were, I call them protective armors. They are the protection on the outside before going into the jewel inside. So as I uncovered this jealousy, because I was like despicable, like if anyone knew this is how I felt inside, no one would want to be around me. No one wants to be around jealous people. But as I opened it up and I looked at the core of the pain, it was I was not good enough. And in that, I found my freedom. Because it wasn't jealousy what I thought was the ugliest version of me. It was I truly, the version, the little me, the little cute me inside was screaming, am I ever good enough? Am I ever good enough? Am I ever good enough? And I cried. Just thinking about it chokes me up, because I feel so sorry for that version of me that felt so alone and never good enough for anyone's love, right? No matter what she did. And I hugged her, and I loved myself through it. I hugged myself through it, and I said, oh my God, even if you're not good enough for anyone in the world, I love you anyway. That EFT mantra, that even though this, I love you anyway, has helped me wonderfully throughout my life. And I cried and I cried and I cried until finally she was good enough for me. Until finally she was good enough for me. The version of me that was in so much pain. And then miraculously, jealousy just wasn't a thing, right? And I accepted it, because whenever it would show up, it was because I felt in that moment, I was my radar to know that the little me inside is right now feeling that she's not good enough. And instead of thinking, like badgering, you're such a shitty person to feel jealous, what is wrong with you? Instead of doing all that self-hate and self-blame and trying to change myself and pretend I'm not, I would just go deep in that moment and say, right now I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. And I'm going to love me through it, and I'm going to be there for me. It stopped being about blaming myself, shaming myself, putting myself down, guilting myself. It turned into, how can I love myself, that version of me that is having such a difficult time right now, that feels like she's not good enough. How can me, the compassionate, loving, kind person that I know I am, the light version of me, hug and embrace the shadow version of me that is suffering so deeply because of a belief that is not truth, which I also call in my book called false truth. And that's how it's worked for me. That was the first step towards coming home to myself, recognizing who I am to me. That is what finding oneself looks like. Finding oneself doesn't mean I'm going to be an angel and flying through the sky and finding myself. Finding myself is finding my essence, allowing my essence, my soul, the breath, the spark of God within me, to hug and embrace the human coding in my body and my experience on my timeline, and whatever I have picked up from my lineage and my observation of my parents. There's so much that's happening. I can take that and love it and hug it. I, who I am, I know, extremely compassionate, full of kindness. I love humans. I love serving others. I love bringing joy. I am joy. I am everything that's beautiful. Can love and hug and embrace the parts of me that have deemed themselves so ugly. That is step one to finding oneself, coming to terms with who I am, not naming one light and one darkness, just saying another aspect of me is feeling this way. I don't know if that's mine, my mom's, my dad's, my grandparents, my great-great, I don't know if it's part of the DNA that's come into my body. All I know, it's been suffering. And me as the light being, the essence of me, can embrace that. And so I did this with so many parts of me. And this went on for a while. I wasn't forcing it as much as the emotion would show up. I would bump into someone and they would trigger something in me. And that's why one of the sentences I love so much that Donald Walsh uses is that God told him that I've sent you only angels. So even a narcissist who appears is an angel that's triggering you to remind your essence to wake up, to love the version of you that's in pain right now and let it know. Doesn't need to fight itself, doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be loved right now. And the person it needs to be loved to the most, all it's been seeking is you. Is you to love it. Is this making sense? Just let me know if this is making sense for you, because it's so deep and there's so much to it. This is deep, but it's also the tip of the iceberg, because just the step number one is just going deeper within yourself. Writing out the ugly you that you hate so much and you're fighting against and you're trying to prove to the world that you are not that, and coming to terms with it and saying, well, that can exist, that is allowed, and that's okay. Going through that, allowing that to be part of who you are, that's when you find yourself, because you're not fighting against you anymore. You are basically embracing all of you, right? And in that embracing, let me just fast forward. When that happens, and you pour compassion all over you, you pour the compassion that you've poured all over humans, you can pour all over you at these times. You will find that you offer compassion very differently to others. Because now you kind of understand the pain they are suffering by denying by trying to prove differently to the world, because they find themselves so ugly. They're so ashamed of who they are that they cannot sit with themselves ever, or sit with that shame. And shame is one of the worst emotions to have. It is like the gunkiest place to live in. And so if you can uncover your shame, I mean, with my clients, just I see them. I see once we do the work together, I see them. I see the shift. Their skin color changes. It's like the freedom happens. They can breathe all of a sudden, and it's like, oh my God, I was trapped, right? It's what I know that I felt, and so I can offer it so easily to them, and I can see the joy I have, and seeing it unravel, and seeing their true essence show, and seeing their self-forgiveness show up, their power. You can see them more confident in a sense, or more at peace with themselves. It's just euphoric. That's why I do what I do. It's just the observation of what happens. A lot of times, even through writing, the language changes and I can feel the energy come out, and that's when I know the person already shifted. These are clients that I've had for years where they just come back and want something, and I can see the energy pour out of the way they were writing. So when you know yourself, what happens is you unlock. This is the most magical part. You unlock your intuition. You can hear it so much clearer, and the mind isn't in control as much. You're not confused between what are my thoughts saying and what is my intuition, which one's which. I'm so confused. There's a lot more clarity inside because you've decluttered. What it is it's a decluttering. of beliefs inside, right? There's a lot of self-forgiveness that comes, or self-acknowledgement and self-freedom. So this is step one. There are so many other steps, but to me, if you're serious about feeling at peace and breathing and actually having fun on this planet and understanding God, because God will help you through this. Like once you have that intention, just trust that the path is being opened. Once you have the courage to sit with those versions of you, once you have the courage, it's scary as hell, I'm telling you, right? It's scary as hell. We get scared to get trapped in that identity. But once you have the courage and you cry and you do everything, you're going to notice the ego's dying not to go there, because it's like here to protect you and put you down all the time to make sure you're safe and whatever the hell the ego's doing. And you want to break free of that because it hurts. It hurts to believe those thoughts. It hurts to believe that you don't matter and you're not deserving and you're unlovable and all the disempowered versions of you. It's horrible to live like that all the time with these thoughts, right? And there are people who I've sat with and tried, but they refuse to sit with those. They refuse to see it because the pain of seeing it, and they would rather run away from the pain they might feel for an hour or two or a day or a week and live with that pain forever, rather than sit with it right now, bring it into the light and just accept that it's there, right? This is what causes most suffering. Has this answered the question as best to my abilities as what stage one looks like? As how it feels like, because after that other things open up. They're beautiful things. Other things open up, right? You have a different way of being in the world. Synchronicities start to take place because now you're more free. There's a lot of breathing space inside you. You're not shaming, guilting, blaming yourself as much because you're discovering you. So how do you find you? You find you, the simple answer is you find you by being okay with all aspects of you. Even the version of you that hates your body, sit with that version and love it. Tell, I love you anyway. You're allowed to hate your body, but I love you just the way you are. Right? The version of you that thinks you're wrinkling or whatever, the version of you, whatever it is that is shaming, blaming, and judging you, sit with those versions of you. Okay, write it out. Talk it out, leave it on a recorder and speak your truth to you. You want to hear that. It's as if you're two parts and that version of you is speaking and you are just God. Listening and loving and not judging, but allowing it to be free. Basically, it wants to be freed from the prison you have had it in. That's basically it. And there's so many more parts, but I feel like I asked God, yesterday I was like all excited and I was like, oh my God, there's so much to say about this. And then I was like, I'm not going to prepare ahead of time. I wrote the book. I started writing that book and everything was pouring out in a book form. But I was like, today I was like, I'm not going to prepare before. I'm just going to wait to see what source has to share about this, because I know that my little mind or my thoughts or what it's going to use from my past or my experiences to share is very limited. But I know if I just allow myself, like I tell my ego that wants to be in charge, like, I understand you want to be in charge. I love you anyway. You could step aside now. I want to hear source. And I'll just allow source to speak and see which one of the many modalities is the one that is the most profound. And this showed up. And this showed up. And really the details, the insights, the tools, the techniques, it's an amazing book. And really, I'm not saying this because I don't feel that I wrote it. I really, truly believe that it came through me completely. Like most authors, it comes through them, but I can't even identify with it as mine. Like Happily Ever After, my first book is mine. It's my pain. It's my this. It was how I freed myself of the pain, is by writing a book about my narcissistic, abusive life. But the discover the gifts of your disempowered self was like click. Like I don't even know how it became a book and how many pages and how much, like it's all things that I have done and worked through, but the way it poured in. So I really recommend it. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of shifts in that book. Take that book with the information I offered you and use that book. Use that book. You'll find it on Amazon by Zaben. Use that book as a guidance, as a help. It's just filled with jewels, filled with insights. Trust me. I flip through it because I'm like, what did I write? And I flip through it when I need to remember something or go somewhere. Like I still flip through it. And when I read, I'm like, well, this isn't me. I'm like reading someone else who wrote the book. So yes. Anyway, I love you all. I hope this was helpful. I really, really do. And I hope it answered the question. Delia, I really do. And let me know your questions, your responses. If there's something that isn't making sense, just ask it. I will respond. I will delightfully, from my heart, respond. Because I love getting the information out there for others. To my incentive, my desire is to be a tool in sharing my life, my experiences, my path, to allow others to open up to their freedom also. So I love you. Take care of yourselves. Love yourself. Find yourself by finding the versions of you that you deem ugly as step one, right? The first step. Have the courage. That's all I'm going to say. It's deep already, and that will take you into an entirely different new reality and realm and peace of mind. Love you. Take care of yourselves. Kisses. Heart, heart, heart. I love doing those hearts.